All right, welcome in the KSO Show on a Friday. Mason Voth, Drew Galloway here with you as we are set, ready to roll. We're going to start doing this more religiously, going live. So whenever we would normally just be recording a normal show, might as well do it live for you. And I understand some of you may not be able to be available when that is happening. That's fine. It'll be back for playback like usual. We'll upload it into a podcast format as well. So you don't have to worry about missing anything if you get in late or you just say, hey, I want to hold off. But what this gives you the ability to do is I understand it gets to this part of the afternoon. You're thinking, my life's kind of boring. Work kind of sucks. Maybe you can listen to something other than, the same sports talk topics that have been thrown out throughout the day. I promise I will not infringe upon the set time for the game on KMAN from 4 to 6 because they already do a great job of giving you plenty of K-State sports talk throughout the day. But, maybe you're in a desolate sports talk area like Wichita, Kansas, and you need a little something K-State wise in your life right now. So we'll bring that to you. And you can, as always, when we go live, leave comments, questions, anything. And we're gonna do this on a regular basis. So we've been trying to kind of rework our format here on how we'll do this. And so Monday, Wednesday, Friday in season. So once we get to August, that's when it'll fire up, football season, of course. And then we'll have to see what we think in season constitutes as, because it's not just when games are being played. As we know, when the portal opens up in college basketball, it is going to be hot and heavy for a good couple of weeks. So we'll go 3 days a week. Then we'll always have breaking news for you when it's necessary. And then we'll scale back in the summers, Tuesdays, Thursdays, just 2 days a week. But there will still be a daily element to all of this. I plan on doing some quick hitters for everybody once a day, 5-15 minutes at a time. And we'll do it just based off of questions that you can leave over at KStateOnline.com. I'll start a thread for that you can find everything in. So that's a good pitch that if you're not a K-State Online member right now, great time to get signed up to be one so you can leave me those questions. Or you can go in there and, what are the hot topics on the board today, Drew? What are some of the things that the people would find very entertaining if they were a KSO member?
Ooh, so today there is a little bit of talk because there's another eligibility lawsuit because
I was going to say KSU Freaks keeping everybody informed right now with that's a teaching thread right there essentially.
Because eligibility is all made up and nothing matters anymore. So there's a little bit of that. Got a little bit of recruiting content out there. Let's see that those are probably the two biggest things that I'd say are on the board today. But like we're always taking like evergreen topics that we can talk about for like 5 to 15 minutes a day.
Yeah. So we'll have all that for you. And like everybody loves, you can go in there and laugh at the idiocy of college sports throughout the day and everything else that comes with it. So we'll get into all of that. But we got 2 basketball games on tap this weekend in Bramlage, a couple of big ones for different reasons. Let's just go chronological order real quick because we are going to have a Sunday conference game for the K-State men. I can't recall the last time that would have happened. I did some light research when the schedule first came out, and I think we would probably need somebody from a couple of generations before us to just off of memory go, yeah, they used to play Sunday games in the Big Six. Like that to me feels like the only people that would have some kind of understanding of it, because for the life of me, I only know Saturday weekend games in the Big 12, but basically every other conference has done Sundays. We thought initially this was a play by the Big 12 to maybe get some more teams on TV, and then we found out just how stupid it was because it seems like every Sunday game is on ESPN Plus, and I'm still seeing American Athletic Conference games on Sundays, or, the CBS Sunday window is taken up by the Big Ten or whoever it may be. So it doesn't really make a ton of sense. It was floated to me at one point that there may have been some logistical reasons in the Big 12 that required a Sunday scheduling for some games. It might involve guys that wear stripes technically. Don't know how legit that might be, but that was something that was floated out there. And after what we saw in Utah this weekend, I could believe it that the Big 12's had a tough time with their officiating this year. So that will be a Sunday game. So we'll talk K-State, Arizona State in a little bit, but let's fire off by starting with the K-State women, Drew, because they're still in the thick of a Big 12 title race. They're a game back right now in the conference standings, but they get Aoka Lee back this weekend. Now, Jeff Mitty said yesterday on the game on KMAN, which starts in 45 minutes, so get over there and listen to Mitch Fortner, that it's not going to be some heavy workload. Like, people shouldn't expect that, but nonetheless, it's nice to see her back in the lineup. And I went on Bosco's Boys today, and one of the things that got mentioned in there is that when the K-State women have played a team that has one dominant go-to scorer, they just really haven't had like the success that you would need. That kind of screws them up because this is a team that they're so good at suffocating other people with their defense. You have to be a really talented player to find success against K-State's defense. But when you do have a player like that, they can kind of take the game over. And in turn, K-State doesn't have anybody to match that when Aoka Lee is not on the floor. That's the benefit you're going to get here, is that you're kind of going to get your cash cow back inside, that if nothing is working, you have something you can go to that's probably going to yield results. So it's exciting to get her back if you're K-State. You're going to get Baylor on Monday then, who is also in the thick of this Big 12 title race. So it should be an exciting time in Bramlage Coliseum this weekend as the Cats get KU again, who they blasted in Lawrence after splitting with the Jayhawks last season.
Yeah, it's an exciting time to get Aoka Lee back. I mean, you say that they don't really have the firepower offensively to kind of keep up. You could even argue defensively that K-State, when another team has like a dominant scorer, and especially guards, that K-State doesn't really have anybody that can really pick that up. And we saw that on Monday with Quinterly just getting loose. It felt like every time that West Virginia had the ball, probably would have been nice to have a presence down low to help out the guards, because the guards couldn't keep her in front. But you look at KU, K-State blasted them in Allen Fieldhouse, like you said. I don't expect anything different tomorrow. Like, this is not a good KU team. KU last year was way better than they are right now. I just did like a quick run through, and it feels like any team really with a pulse has beat KU and beat KU pretty soundly. So I think that K-State will be able to handle them. It is interesting because I don't know if this is like a typical thing in the women's game, but West Virginia also did this, where they did their senior night on the Saturday and then played a Monday game, and K-State's doing the same thing. So I think it'll be fun, because this is a really, really, really good senior class for the K-State women, and to send them off and what is supposed to be a very, very good crowd tomorrow afternoon, and then have the rivalry, have a big game. K-State's still in the thick of it. You're probably a Baylor and West Virginia fan going down the stretch until Baylor plays K-State, because Baylor also plays TCU. West Virginia plays TCU on Sunday. And you need TCU to lose again, and then K-State to beat Baylor, and then you get the three-way tie, and at least you have a share of the Big 12 title.
Yeah, I mean, and number one, to go to what you're saying about the senior day festivities, this senior class. I mean, this senior class, the crowd that is going to be there on Saturday, they've gotten multiple times throughout this season and last season. They hosted the first two rounds of the NCAA tournament last year. Like, this class of players is what built that and was able to bring that back to K-State women's basketball. So they deserve their due. That'll be a good embodiment of what they've been. But yeah, you're looking, it's a wounded duck that's coming in KU. Like you said, they've lost about anybody with a pulse. Their last 5 games, they beat UCF barely on Monday, squeaked that one out. I think
UCF
it was Monday
is
or
terrible
earlier in the week. Yeah, and even that, I think they tried blowing. And then before that, 13-point loss to Iowa State, 4-point loss at Cincinnati, who is not very good, 33-point loss at West Virginia, and then the 27-point loss at home to K-State. So that's what's coming in. Yes, Samai Nichols can be a handful inside, but it still hasn't meant much. I mean, she's averaging almost 20 points a game this year at 20 and 5 on the assist side of things. So she can do a lot. It just hasn't met much. And I think K-State will be fired up. We know that the crowds that some of these places can deliver for a women's basketball game can also kind of be shell shocking. We talk about for the men, sometimes they go into empty gyms and how that can affect them. It's all just about what you've become accustomed to. And so when you get to a situation where K-State right now is delivering some of the best crowds in women's basketball in the Big 12, that can be overwhelming. And I imagine that's probably going to be enough for K-State, who I also think probably has a lot of juice because it's senior day, because Aoka Lee's back. Like, there are just so many things that are pointing towards K-State coming in, taking care of business, and getting after the Jayhawks for their second win over KU this year. And like we've talked about, K-State trying to keep pace to where they're only a game back in the Big 12 with 3 games remaining. And the first game, that 3-game stretch starts tomorrow. So that's what we've got coming up there on the women's side. And I will be there. First game of the season that I will be taking my daughter to. So we did it last year. It was easier when she was like a real baby. And so it's just kind of like a tag along, occasionally you had to change a diaper. Maybe she'd freak out a little. Now it's like she's going to want to move. She's going to want to say and see things. So interested to see how that goes, but I'm excited for that. So that'll be a good time for me personally tomorrow. Also, I enjoy getting to watch basketball games as just a fan and not having to go and work and, you can get into it. You can scream at a ref, I scream at him post game. It's not like I'm doing it in game, though, while we're there covering. So I look forward to my time in Bramlage tomorrow, and then I'll drive home and drive back up on Sunday. And we'll see K-State and Arizona State play. But before we talk about the men, I want to remind everybody about the 2025 Aer Lingus College Football Classic, as K-State and Iowa State are getting set August 23rd. Come Sunday, we will be exactly a half year away from kickoff of K-State, Iowa State. And if you need to get everything taken care of to get over to Ireland, go to cats2ireland.com. And if you're, again, one of those that says, please, I'm a man, I can do it myself, I'm going to be my own travel agent, okay, that's fine. You still need a ticket to get into the game, though. You go to kstatesports.com. You can do it there. You can also call the ticket office, or you can go in person at Bramlage. I know you can do it online, because when I was buying tickets to the women's game on Saturday, I saw the spot for the Aer Lingus College Football Classic. I thought, should I click on it? Should I just check it out? I was like, no, I think I'm already covered there, because we will be getting over there via Cats2 Ireland. So shout out to cats2ireland.com. And if you haven't gone there yet, you're either really trying to protest how much you've heard me say it on here, or I don't know, you're a prude that doesn't like fun. You don't like exploring the world. That would be me. I have never been outside of the country, and my wife, very frustrated that the first time I'm leaving the country is not with her, because she would prefer to travel and see different things, but she's going to be stuck at home with a 4-month-old baby. So have fun, wife, and a 2-year-old. So that'll be a good time. Ireland fun fact today, Drew. What do you got for us?
I got 2 of them today. Perfect. But would you rather go 1 or 2? This is like the eye doctor experience.
Oh, I was going to say, let's make a deal. You're like Wayne Brady right here. What's behind? Let's go with number 2.
So the earliest humans in Ireland date back to 30,000 years BC. So quite a long time ago.
That is a long time ago. Do you have like any other like time reference there for me to understand what was going on in 30,000 BC?
No, I got nothing for you about what was going on in 30,000 BC.
So it would appear that this was the Upper Paleolithic time period.
That means a lot to me right now.
So that's between 50,000 and 12,000 years ago, and the beginning of the Holocene. I don't know. This could also be wrong too. I don't know. I just went to what the first Google search took me to. Let's see. No, this says Cro-Magnons in Europe. I don't know. I don't know any of this stuff. I probably shouldn't talk about it. Now, but this could give you a little bit of an idea. 30,000 BC, that's before the Neanderthals went extinct. They went extinct 1,000 years later. And then 7,000 years after 30,000 BC was the colonization of North America. And then 14,000 years after 30,000 BC was the last glacial maximum, whatever that means. So I'm looking through this little history situation right now. And then 10,000 BC was the end of the last ice age. So there you go. For those of you that were trying to figure out what was going on, you're probably still confused as I am, but we got through it together, and we can talk about K-State and Arizona State now. 3:00 on Sunday from Bramlage, a little Sunday basketball, the Sunday matinee. Football season's over. Now the Cats can take the spot of when you normally be watching the Chiefs. And this will be a fun game. That's what you think of when you see 13-13 against 12-14 on the basketball floor. These teams did play a fun game back in Tempe earlier this month when K-State won by a score of 71-70. Jaden Quaintance missed 2 free throws at the end of the game on a great foul by David Gasson. I don't know if he knew that Quaintance was such a terrible free throw shooter or what, but it's something to keep in mind. Now, Quaintance did return after missing some time from an injury he got in the Oklahoma State game. He played 13 minutes on Tuesday against Houston, but obviously that's limited from what he had been, so it'll be interesting to see what he does, because Jerome Tang said after the game for K-State when they played Arizona State, that was the loudest 1-for-7 that he'd ever seen, that he thought Quaintance was all over the floor making the impact. He did have 10 rebounds and 2 blocks in that game, so that would explain it as well. But Drew, what do you make of the Cats and the Sun Devils coming up on Sunday?
To be honest with you, I don't really know what to make of this game. We were talking before we started recording that you could make an argument that Arizona State is probably going to come in pretty defeated. They've lost 6 of their last 7. The only team that they've beat in that stretch is Colorado, who, by the way, Arizona State 3 Big 12 wins, 2 against Colorado. So they at least got the sweep there. But you can make the argument that they're defeated. K-State is pretty banged up, and I don't think that that's anything like crazy to say because of how hard that they've been playing and how well that they've been playing, and it's a shortened rotation. That you could say that K-State might be a little bit defeated and a little bit flat because they've lost the last 2, and now you really have to be perfect to end the regular season to even have a chance at making an at-large bid for the NCAA tournament. So fascinating game from that standpoint. And then you add into the fact that Arizona State keeps finding ways to get ejected or to lose a game hilariously. And like anything could happen in this game. And I would not be shocked. I do think that the long layoff for K-State probably really helps because you could see how kind of banged up that I think that K-State was, especially against Utah. So now you got 6 days off. I hated the Sunday game when it was first on the schedule and it wasn't even on TV. Now I'm thinking, okay, get an extra day of rest. Maybe it helps a little bit. So I think that their legs will be back. And they'll probably get back to shooting the way that they were up until the Arizona, BYU, and then the Utah game.
Yeah, I think the layoff was probably at the right time for this team. You look at kind of how it went. It's a tough road trip there. You had that highly emotional and just long stretch of win, like those 6 games, like that takes a toll. And then unfortunately they come up short in Utah. So I think it's probably good timing for them. I mean, certainly the other team that made the trip up to Utah, they thought it was good timing for this layoff because Bill Self wanted to get the heck away from his guys, it sounds like. So I think that's good. It gives you time to rest up. And now probably good to kind of refocus and try and determine what it is that you want with the rest of the season. Because like we're talking about, you do have 5 gettable games left in front of you. Like, again, while we're back in that stage of it's highly unlikely, each win keeps making it more and more realistic that you can still have that in front of you. And I kind of mentioned it after. I thought it was weird. Joe Lenardi kind of made it seem like before that game tipped off at Utah that K-State could maybe even handle another loss after that. I think that would be pretty unlikely, but at least that's being floated out there. But you can beat Arizona State, you can beat UCF, you can beat Colorado, and then it's at Cincinnati and Iowa State, two teams you've already beaten this year, two teams that last year you had close games with. Like, you can handle those situations. It's just a matter of what's the likelihood, and we'll see. Now, the only thing that would kind of concern me with all of this is, and I'll be interested to see the response, was once K-State lost, and it seems like the NCAA tournament carrot is further away from them again. It was being dangled in front of their face. Now it's further away. What is it that their response is going to be? I think that the long layoff gets them to still think, hey, we can do this. You get re-energized. You want to get back out on the floor and play, as opposed to, like, if they had played on Wednesday and lost again, and then they got to come back out on Saturday, like, they might be lethargic. They might be checked out on it. I think that they are going to have this flowing in the right way. But I worry, because we talked about after the game against Utah, I said, I kind of hope that Coleman Hawkins is hurt, because it just didn't look right in those two games up in the mountains. And so I wonder what we're going to see from him on Saturday. Like, because again, if K-State's going to win 5 straight games to close this season out, because again, that's the goal here. Maybe not likely, but that's the goal. That's the way we need to talk about this, because that's really the only fascinating thing remaining with this team. You're going to need Coleman Hawkins at some point. I think you can manage Arizona State without him. You can probably handle UCF without him, because they are sinking like a rock right now. They're playing like one of the 3 worst teams in the Big 12. And then you can definitely handle Colorado at home without him. So you're going to be able to have this chance where, even if he's not at his best or he's limited in some ways, because it just didn't seem right. Like, we know a lot about Coleman Hawkins now, and there are flaws that he has, but I don't think that he's ever not trying to compete. And that's almost what it looked like at times in Salt Lake City on Monday night. So you wonder what's going on there. David Gasson had 2 of the worst games of his season in the mountains. I don't think that happens again. I think you get a good David Gasson. And then we know that, like, Brendan Hasen had a good game first time around against Arizona State. So there are guys that are going to be willing to step up. And towards the back half of that winning streak stretch, you had guys like CJ Jones and Moby Ike Garuka. They were playing their best basketball and giving their best contributions that they had for a majority of the season. So that's what's facing them this weekend. I think that they will be refocused, ready to go, no matter what kind of the standing is. And a guy like Coleman Hawkins, maybe it's beneficial that you had this long layoff, and maybe we'll see the same guy out there. But even if he needs, kind of a reset on his minutes, you can make it through that in this game. Just like, Bobby Hurley said after the game on whenever they played Houston, Tuesday or Wednesday, that like, Jaden Quaintance got out there. He only played 13 minutes. They shut him down. They didn't think that it was looking the way it needed to. I think you probably have that ability, if you're K-State, to make that decision with maybe, more guys than that. Like, we don't know what else is ailing people, and we don't even know what's ailing Coleman Hawkins. It just, it still sticks with me that it didn't feel or look right when they played Utah. But you're going to lean on Doug McDaniel and Brendan Hasen, I think, in this game to do it from the outside, because Quaintance can be a handful inside if he plays, so that might limit Gasson again a little bit, although he was okay the first time around in Tempe.
When I was talking about K-State being banged up, I think that the 2 guys that you could really tell, because they just weren't playing up to their standards, were David Gasson and Coleman Hawkins. Like, they looked like 2 guys that have really gone to war over this last 3 weeks, 4 weeks now, and just needed a little bit of a layoff. And I think that will probably help both of them. I think that the long layoff probably, even though he shot really, really well against Utah, and I think it's taken, like you said, kind of an unfair blame by people. I think that the long layoff probably helps Brendan Hasen get his legs under him again. But if you're going to be mad at a guy for shooting 45% from 3, I don't know what to tell you. But I think that the long layoff probably helps Doug McDaniel. Like, the Monday to Sunday, as kind of dumb as it seems on the surface, that K-State has to do it to begin with, it is probably very beneficial. Because when we talk about other conferences that do this, and like you talked about the Big Ten and the American and how they play on Sundays. Well, they play on Sundays because they have teams that play on Thursdays and go Thursday, Sunday. Now, K-State is one of the only teams that is doing this Monday to Sunday turnaround. But I think that instead of hurting them, actually really helps. And I think that it does help after 2 losses in a row to have this long stretch of, okay, now we can heal up. Because there is definitely a shot that K-State goes 3-0 in the next 3 games. And then it's do or die at Cincinnati and then do or die in Bramlage against Iowa State.
Yeah.
And I think that we're talking that first week of March of like, okay, like it could happen again.
And there's also a real chance that K-State loses on Sunday and we're having the official funeral for the 2025 season after the game.
Or in Orlando on Wednesday. Like,
yeah,
that is the hard part of this. But like I've said and why beforehand I didn't think that it was possible for K-State to make it, is that you're winning a lot of these coin flip games in a row. But I think that there's at least a chance that they win the next 2 and then you can beat Colorado, and then who knows what happens at Cincinnati, because who knows what their season will look like at that point, because their season is kind of on life support. And then Iowa State, you've already beat once. You already beat them in Bramlage last year. I imagine if K-State wins the next 4, that crowd will be rocking on senior day.
Yeah, and that'll be a big one. 12:30 tip on CBS in the big window. So
yeah, I imagine that'll be an Iron Eagle game too.
Could be. As long as it's not his Nepo baby son. So get Noah out of here.
No, I like Noah Eagle. No Noah Eagle slander.
I cringe every time people talk about what Noah Eagle's going to get to do at NBC next. I'm just like, Jiminy Christmas. Is this the future? I still occasionally tell my dad, like, if only you could have been a famous broadcaster, and then maybe my life would have turned out differently. So as much as I love doing KSO, I would still like to be calling games. But I did not have a famous broadcasting dad, just one very talented landscape architect. And on the topic of K-State and the layoff, probably good rest too, because you're about to have a pretty grinding stretch. What playing on a Sunday does for you, you have 5 games in 13 days coming up once you tip off on Sunday. So that's going to be important for K-State, especially considering what the teams will look like. You end with Iowa State. We know how physical and kind of bully ball that can get at times. And then everybody else, we'll just kind of see what it looks like. But find ways to win. Ken Palm likes K-State 74-70 in this game. And we'll be there on Sunday and come to you live from Bramlage as soon as the game hits its conclusion. So that will wrap up what we got on the Cats. Drew, anything that you got elsewhere in the Big 12 that you're watching for this weekend?
I think the number one thing that I'm watching for, I was going to come into this saying I'm probably watching for Houston and Iowa State, but the more that we kind of dig into that game, Houston might roll. So the other thing that I'm probably looking at is, I know that it is just a disgusting game tomorrow, and for some reason it's on CBS. But how does KU respond to getting just clowned on Tuesday by BYU, and how does that look?
Or about losing Bill Self apparently in the offseason to Oklahoma State that came out today.
Because you look at that game, and I think it's kind of fascinating that spread is so large. I know that Oklahoma
my theory,
State,
Drew.
Yeah, exactly. And Oklahoma State's been playing a little bit better
ball.
So is it possible that they keep it within 15.5 against a fragile locker room? Potentially.
Also, we real quick, we say Oklahoma State's been playing better. They beat UCF by 9 over the midweek.
And they beat Arizona State.
They did lose by almost 40 to Texas Tech at home last weekend. But before that, 1-point loss at TCU. They beat Arizona State by 13. They beat Utah, close loss to Houston. Like they've played better lately. And I think I think they play a little harder for Steve Lutz than they did Mike Boynton.
And honestly, this weekend is not a great slate in the Big 12. BYU Arizona will be kind of fun in the late night window.
Elimination game, TCU Cincinnati at 11 on Saturday.
That is true. But other than that, there's just not a ton of great games. Like Utah at UCF is the other Sunday game.
Hell yeah.
And it's just not a great slate this weekend, but that's okay. You can only get so many great slates in one weekend.
Yeah. BYU Arizona tomorrow night at 9. That'll be a fun one. And that's when we talk about so much of like, it's fun having late games in the Big 12 now when your team doesn't play in them. Like that's going to be a fun one to be able to flip on. And then the second the game ends after 11 o'clock, we can go to bed instead of, thinking about the game and dissecting it and writing and talking about it. So that's the bonus and the benefit that goes on there. But we will be here after the game on Sunday to discuss K-State and Arizona State live as always after each and every game with KSO Postgame Live. We'll have to see what the flow of the day looks like, if it'll be Drew or Fan with me after, or maybe both, we went.
I think it's going to be you and Fan because I'll be at the presser.
Okay. All right. So it's going to be me and Fan. That's been decided. So we won't go 3 wide this weekend, but probably in the midweek against UCF, that'll be on tap.
Yeah, so, definitely a 3 wide game against UCF.
Well, we got to pull out all the stops for Johnny's Jaybirds. So I'm not going to tell everybody what the J stands for, but
maybe I won't be melting down after going 3 wide.
Yeah, it happened on Monday. That was tough. So we'll be back with all that. Plenty of written stuff to get you through until game time on Sunday for the men, and even, obviously tomorrow with the women tipping off at 4 over at KStateOnline.com. So head over to On3, find KSO, and you can read some great stuff. Drew's got a recruiting big board, so you can kind of understand where the pecking order of football recruits is right now as the 2026 cycle is really getting ready to heat up, as guys are going to start making spring visits and more official visits get scheduled for late May into June, and plenty of other stuff happening right now on the football side, because you can't forget about that, even though basketball's still trying to hang on in the back of our minds with some big plays. So we'll get out of here. For Drew Galloway, I'm Mason Voth. We'll talk to you again Sunday afternoon from Bramlage Coliseum.